In this lesson, we'll merge and edit the 2D flattened drawings into one section. So what we're looking at right now is what we have completed at the end of the last lesson, where we went and flattened or used the flatshot command to basically pull everything together, and we've now merged it all behind each other. But if we have a look at this in 3D, we will still see that our main section line is out here, and all of those individual flattened objects are here behind each other, and all of it is still floating, relatively speaking, in 3D space. So what we want to do right now is merge everything together on a flat 2D surface so that we can work with it as a regular plan or section in this case. So what we're going to do first, just to make it editable individually, is I'm going to give each one of these objects a different layer, and that's going to make it easy for me to use the layer isolate tool to select one of them, isolate it, and work on it individually without necessarily having the fuss of trying to work around too many objects as the density of our section starts to increase. So I'm going to go now, open my layer manager, and I'm going to just create about 4 or 5 or 6 new layers, and I'm going to assign each of those individual objects onto those layers. While I do this process, which is quite simple, I'm going to be pausing the video so you don't have to re-watch me do the layers, and I'm going to come back once those objects have been relayered. So now all the relayering has happened, and I can just show you inside the layer manager what it looks like. Basically, I have applied a section prefix to all of the layers with all the elements within the section that we'll be using, and as well I've relayed all of the layers that are going to be in the plan. So basically everything is nicely stripped out. And also remember that if you are working within an office, generally this layer structure is predefined for you. So the way I'm doing it right now is custom to this project, and it's just to facilitate the way that all of these 3D elements are going to be merged together so that I can still pull them apart if I need to. So now that everything has been done, you can just double check, and if you click on any line within that object, you'll see that it says section tower, which means I can very easily isolate it. So the next thing that needs to be done is we need to now go and rotate all of this and flatten it all together. So first, what I'm going to get done is to hide all of the objects that I'm not going to be working with. So I'm just going to choose the freeze layer, and I'm just going to select all of the layers that I don't need so that I only have the section elements that are going to be useful to me. Next, I'm going to look in the front view, and I'm going to now take all of these elements and rotate them by 90 degrees anti-clockwise so that they are all lining up when I look in the plan view. So RO enter. I'm going to select all of these elements, right click. For the base point, I'm going to choose the 0, 0, 0 center, enter, and then we are rotating in the positive direction of 90 degrees. So now you can see everything's been done. If I look in my plan view, I'm getting this. So the next thing you want to do right now is use the flatten command. This is going to take a few seconds, so I'm going to type in flatten here, and just before I hit enter, I'm going to pause the video while the flattening process is happening, and then I'm going to carry on once it's all been flattened. So there we have it. That flatten command took about 20 seconds to run and flatten everything. So if I now look in a 3D view or even in a side view, you'll see that everything is completely flat and straight, all the way it should be. So now if I go back to the top view, I can move everything off to the side slightly, just so that it is out of the way once I bring everything else in, and I'm now going to unhide all of the elements from the plan. So as well, what I think could be a good idea is I'm just going to reduce the amount of context that's visible. So I'm going to make a rectangular object, and I'm just going to type in trim, so TR enter, selecting this box that I've just made, and I'm just going to trim away all of these other elements, and I'm going to leave this outer edge just as the edge of my site that I'm going to be working with. I'm going to match properties so that the layer and everything is the same as that context. So now we have our plan in place, which we had done in the previous few lessons. We've now flattened our section, and the next thing to do now is to go into that section and to basically start recoloring it so that we are getting the same type of logic that we spoke about earlier, where darker colors are for everything that we're cutting through. We will need to trim away things like the water, which is running right through this block at the moment, and there are a few other things that need to be neatened up. So the first thing that I'd like to mention is that right now everything is lined up correctly with our plan. So since the section is cutting through here, let's also add a section line onto our plan, just that we know exactly where we are cutting this section. So I'm going to take this line over here, and I'm going to copy it across, and I'm going to draw a line for myself which is going to basically be in the center of this circle, and I'm going to then just extend this line and add this element onto it. Also, because I think that this will be printed at a much smaller scale, I'm going to increase the scale of this. So I'm going to double that, and I'm going to move that and just snap it onto here. I'm then going to match properties, so MA enter, so that that section line looks the same. Then I'm going to copy this across and move it down to the bottom, and then I'm going to mirror the entire element except for the A, and I'm just going to create a mirror, and I do want to erase the mirrored object, and then I'm just going to move it into place. So now I've just created for myself a sectional line so that I can see exactly where that section is happening. And also what we must not forget is that the section is actually looking left and not right, so we need to go and flip that across. So let's just mirror that to the other side, and let's move this A across as well. And the same thing needs to happen here. We'll move the A across, and MI for mirror, and Y because you don't want to, yes that you don't want to, or yes that you do want to erase the mirrored copy. So next thing that I'm going to do right now is to rotate my view so that this is looking horizontal to me. I'm not going to rotate this plan because I do want each of the projected lines to basically be lining up with what I'm drawing. So if I just draw lines extending out of the plinth or the base of this barge, you'll see that it already lines up very neatly and accurately with the edge of our section here. So everything has been kept in place since our 3D model. All we need to do now is actually rotate our view in AutoCAD. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to set up a new UCS. So that's a Universal Coordinate System. Let's create a little dummy object for ourselves over here, and we're going to use this 3-point UCS. We're then going to click on the origin. If you look at the bottom left-hand corner, it's giving you the exact instructions, the positive direction of X, the positive direction of Y, and now that new UCS has been established. To rotate the view, all you need to do is type plan on your keyboard, enter, and then you need to type U, enter. So basically, because the UCS has been changed, you want to now, when you type plan, you need to type current UCS, so that's C, enter, and that's when everything flips across. So you'll now see that everything has remained in place. You haven't rotated your plan or section at all. You've just rotated your view in respect to that plan or that section. And this is then something that you'll need to go backwards and forwards if you are working between the two. Also remember that you can split your screen. If you do want to work with them at the same time, you can have two viewports like so. And basically you can then rotate this viewport back, so you can go back to your world UCS, and here you would type plan, enter, W, enter, and you would go back to your world UCS. That way you could work in plan on one side and then work on your section in the other side. And both of them are orientated correctly, even though you are working at the same, on the same plan. So different people prefer different methods of work. Whichever one you choose is up to you. Just to keep things nice and big and simple, I'm going to be using a single viewport system so that we can see this slightly larger. So what I'm going to do now, and it's actually going to fall into the next lesson, is now that we have merged and flattened the drawings into one section, that pretty much brings me to what I wanted to cover in this lesson. We've also looked at how to relayer everything, giving us the advantage of now being able to extract those elements again by simply clicking on the object, right-clicking, and we've now basically isolated that layer, which is called the section columns layer, so we can now go and make those edits to that layer only without affecting anything else on the other elements. So this has basically now prepared us for the next section that we're going to be doing in the next lesson, which is just editing and working and detailing up this section for ourselves so that it looks a little bit more presentable and not all in one single color. So join me in the next lesson where we go and do that, where we add some more depth and some more logic to how we represent this, and that'll then afterwards bring us to the end of setting up the base for this sectional drawing.